Hey everyone, you are live with us on BROfessor and Friends. Welcome to the show. Hey everyone, and welcome to BROfessor and Friends. We are live in two different countries for the second
Woohoo!
time ever on the show. I interviewed an old friend. Well, my mind went blank on what his name is. He was in France, but the time
Awesome.
difference isn't near as bad as what it is now. Our friends Eric and Brittany are in Mexico with Hourless Live. Thank you for joining us on the show. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us, Joey. We're excited to be here.
Man, we've tried to do this show a couple times, but our schedules just haven't been able to line out. And I messaged you earlier this week because I thought, oh man, they're in Mexico. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if they've discovered internet down there or whatever. So just thought, well, I'll just message them and maybe it'll work. And I received a message right back from you and say that you were glad to come on. So I really appreciate this. This is a truly an experience that I've been looking for because I've been following you for a while. But the fun is really just beginning, and I really want to get into that. Man, tell us a little bit about yourself for those of us who maybe not have ever seen you before or known you. Who are you? Tell us who you are.
We're Eric and Brittany Highland, and along with our son Caspian, who is 4 years old, we are currently driving around the world. But it didn't start here. We've actually been traveling full time for almost 8 years now. And so
Wow.
those 8 years were in North America. And so this is our third time in Mexico, where we are right now. We're in interior Mexico, San Luis Potosi, which is the capital city of the state by the same name. And it's basically almost straight south from Laredo, about
Mm.
9.5 hours or so from the Texas border south.
Yeah, and
Oh,
we've been
where'd you
traveling
way down
full
there?
time. Yeah, we've been traveling full time, as Brittany said, for almost 8 years, owning no home or property. And so our son went straight from the birthing room of the hospital to the Jeep, and he's never known a life apart from this. So this
Wow.
is our life. We do this full time, and we love it. It's phenomenal.
That is incredible. So, what made you want to live this lifestyle? What sparked it in the beginning?
Sure. So for me, I'm prior service military. I'm retired military. I was in the United States Coast Guard for 20 years, and then worked for the King County Sheriff's Office, and then for Texas DPS, and then I fully retired. But I was already used to traveling minimalistically around the globe. I've been all
Mm.
over the world. I've been on 6 of the 7 continents, and then I married a minimalist who loved to travel. And so it was my idea to start traveling full time, and that was in 2014 that we started that adventure. But it was actually Brittany's idea to drive around the world. So when I say we're the perfect match, it's the right match. So
Wow, that's incredible. That's a great story, and I always wonder what sparked people to do it full time. And a great percentage of the time, they say I was military. I moved around a lot.
mhm.
I was used to it. So I just spent last weekend with some good friends of yours, Joe and Misty, and
Oh
Nice.
yeah,
we
great folks.
we got rained on and we got
Oh
wet
no.
and it was just miserable. But we just had the best time and up here at the rendezvous in the Ozarks here in Arkansas, and had a
Hmm.
had a great time. I told them I was having you on this week, and Misty was so excited. They
Well,
love you.
shout out to Joe and Misty. We love them.
Yeah, the
and their
day we
kids.
make.
The day
Yeah, the day we
friends.
make. I had them on the show and encouraged Misty to do her own podcast, and she's doing that
Aw.
on Lady Overlander Radio. I'm excited
Yeah, I
about
was on
that.
her first episode.
I
So
know.
that
I
was
listened
really
to that. It
exciting.
was
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
Did a great job. She was very hesitant. I was like, you'd be really good at this. So I've really encouraged her to do that, and I'm
That's
really glad
awesome.
she took that leap of faith to do that. But what made you decide Mexico? Why start in Mexico?
Sure. So, we had several options. At the end of the day, Mexico was the only continent, heading south is the only continents that we could go via driving. We'd have to ship our vehicle if we were going to go to Australia, Europe, or Asia.
Right.
So we decided not only for that reason, but also I speak fluent Spanish. And, going through Mexico, Central America, and South America was a great way to get our feet wet. Plus, like Brittany said, we'd already been to Mexico 2 times prior to this. So it wasn't, there was like a familiarity that allowed us global journey with a little bit of familiarity.
Mhm.
Well, that's very interesting. Something that you're comfortable with, I know, is a really great start. And I know that you've just recently changed your vehicle to
Mhm.
something a little more capable, and I want to talk about that a little later. But uh, Eric, share with me, how was it getting across the border?
Well, actually, I'll let Brittany share that with you. She handles, so you got to understand the way we work. I'm the connections guy. I make all the connections, and
Okay.
Brittany does all the paperwork and all of the scheduling and all of the agendas.
He does all the talking, and I do everything that's not talking.
Yeah. I
Okay.
have all the fun.
I understand, but the borders
And
have
then
really.
somehow everyone thinks that he does all the work because he
No,
does all the
I just get
talking.
all the credit.
Well, you never know. You
Brittany
never
should
know.
Get the credit always, you guys. Just don't even think it's me
That's
responding.
great. That's great. Well, the
So
borders have really been an issue for the last year and a half. So going across the border at this time, I'm sure, was a challenge. And so I'm interested to hear about how that went for you.
I think there have been a lot of misconceptions with the border crossing to Mexico. We're a part of a lot of Facebook groups, including one called On the Road in Mexico, which is literally thousands of people who are all driving through Mexico and doing border
Okay.
crossings. And it depends on which official you met with during this kind of COVID time. But for the most part, the border to Mexico never really closed in actuality. So there have been overlanders driving into Mexico
Oh, okay.
ever since COVID.
Wow.
So as far as our experience, we didn't experience anything different this time at the border than we did the 2 other times. It was all the same paperwork requirements, just the normal requirements for our personal visas and for our temporary permit
Hmm.
for the change. Nothing in relation to COVID other than mask requirements.
As far as the paperwork, but the experience itself this time was a little bit different.
It was. So in the past, we picked smaller border crossings where we didn't expect a lot of people, expected it to be a smoother crossing and a quicker crossing. And we chose Piedras Negras, which is across the border from Eagle Pass, Texas this time.
Mhm.
And we crossed on a Saturday, first thing in the morning. That way we had the whole day ahead of us to get to our destination. And we found out about 48 hours before we crossed that the normal offices right at the border where you would normally get your visas and your tip, your temporary import permit, they're closed on the weekend.
Mhm.
And so instead of being
Oh.
able to get our paperwork done right there, we had to drive 40 kilometers south of the border to another office to get legal, basically. And when we got there at 9 a.m. in the morning, so it
Yeah.
was still
We
early.
get there, and there is a line wrapped around the building. Actually, not one line, 2 lines
Yeah.
wrapped around the building. And we get
Oh,
there and we
no.
find out that one line is for our personal visas, and the other line is for our temporary import permit, which is for the vehicle. And to make a long story short, we stood in both lines. There's no like listing of the paperwork that you need to have. So
Yeah, it
we're,
was
we're finding
very
out from the locals like
confusing.
what you need.
Yeah.
And then it happened that we had the paperwork that we needed, but I get mine done first, which was the visa line. I get my FMM cards done. Come to find out, I need copies of the documents that they just issued me to get the paperwork from the other line that Brittany's standing in.
And they don't have photocopiers.
There's no copy.
Well,
which normally
now
they do.
I know when you prepare to go on overlanding trips, there's all this big list of gear that you want to take with you. And now I'm assuming that a copier is not in that list of gear.
No,
Okay,
but we might
yeah.
need to add one. So then, you know, they're like, well, you need copies of the document that we just gave you. And I'm like, okay, well, where can I get a copy? They're like, we don't have a copy machine. So they tell me about this gas station. It's literally a quarter mile away down this busy highway. So I leave Brittany and Caspian in line, and I run to this gas station a quarter mile away, make my copies, run back, hand it to Brittany, and eventually we were able to get through. I think the whole process took us about 2 hours to get through.
Wow. You never know. I mean, you just never know what you're going to encounter. It's just a crapshoot. You know,
Yeah.
once you get up in the morning, you just live with it, go with it, deal with it. I see that
just have to
you're
stay
very
flexible.
you're very used to things not going the right way. I can already tell that because you improvise, overcome, adapt when life throws you a curveball. You just kind of have to do
I
that.
say that all the time.
Yeah.
Improvise, adapt.
Well, that's my favorite line from Clint Eastwood movie. So it's, you know, I use that all the time, and it's true. You have to do it. You have to do it because you never
You
know
have to smile
what
a
might happen.
lot, and you have to be patient, Joey, especially with international border crossings. Smile, be patient,
Have a sense of
have
humor.
a sense of humor. Just understand that it's going to take a while. I was just
Yeah.
talking to a guy the other day who just crossed in, I think it was Honduras, and he was telling me that it took him 4 hours at the border. And I told
Oh.
Brittany when we were done with this border experience that, look, it's not going to be our hardest border crossing, and it's not going to be the longest border crossing. So we might as just, you know, we're going around the world. We may
Take
as well
it
just
as
get used to it.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read so many things in Graham Bell's books about
Mhm.
border crossings
Yeah.
and how he's had to pay guys off and do different things in order to get through. And you know, last year he was having to take a COVID test on every single border crossing, and it was extremely expensive. It's amazing what they'll throw at you, the requirements to get into a country. And so that's an amazing story. So why did you pick where you're at, the city that you're at, to stop in? Have you been there before?
We have. So we plan to spend the full 6 months of our visa length in Mexico. And we knew that coming down because, like I said, we're using this time in Mexico to prepare for Central and South America. That's our purpose of being here in Mexico. And so when we knew we were going to spend that kind of time, I have family that's in Puebla, Mexico, which is south of Mexico City. I have family in Merida, which is on the Yucatan Peninsula. And so we knew we wanted to go to those two cities. So we had enough time to kind of divvy up 2 more cities. And I told Brittany, you get to pick one and I get to pick one. So I
Seems
picked San
fair to
Luis
me.
Potosi. Yeah, I picked this city. I love this city. The last time we were here in 2019, right before we left, I told Brittany, and keep in mind, I'm a full-time traveler and have been for 8 years. I told Brittany, I live here. And that right there, Joey, is a statement because I have wanderlust to the extreme. So if I tell you that I can live in a city, that says something about the city. And then Brittany picked.
I picked Guanajuato, where we'll go in about a month, and it's just 3 hours south of here. But it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it just has all these colorful buildings going up the hills and theaters. It has a really vibrant live art scene. And so I'm really excited to visit there. And this is how we make full-time overlanding sustainable. So I think it's a misconception that you always have to be off-roading and you have to have a 4x4 capable vehicle. There are global overlanders who rarely go off the pavement, but they're overlanding. They're driving through different countries, getting to know the culture and the people. And we're in this for the long haul. This is a 10 to 15 year journey for us. And so we are finding a rhythm that allows us to sustain the overland lifestyle for that long.
Yeah, and to be clear, Joey, you know, no offense to my friends back in the United States who I've gone overlanding with or gone off-roading with and whatnot, but off-roading with a rooftop tent is not overlanding. That's by definition, it's not overlanding. And
it's camping.
It's camping. It's car camping. You know, and unless you're really understanding what overlanding is, because I think sometimes we get flack they're in an Airbnb. They're not overlanding. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
you have no idea what you're talking about. Okay,
Right.
come hang out with me, and we'll see what we'll help you understand what this overlanding lifestyle is.
Yeah.
Because this is where it's at, and that's why you hear all this. I don't know if you can pick up on the music, on the audio, but there's music, there's vehicles, there's noise. We're in the middle of San Luis Potosi, Mexico. We're going to be here for a month. Then we go to Guanajuato, Puebla, Merida, Belize, Central America, South America, Africa. That's overlanding, guys. And come do it with us because it's amazing.
That's so true. Taking it all in, and if you don't take any of the culture in, you're missing so much of what the world has to offer. It's not just going out in the middle of nowhere and seeing beautiful sights. Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
take in the culture.
Totally. Yeah.
Take in the culture. That's a huge part of it. Well, I want to talk about what you're doing and where you're planning on going, but I want to stop just for a minute, take a breath, and pause for station identification. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Barry Henderson with Tailback Trailers.
I'm Adam with Oki Overland.
This is John with Long Creek Overland.
I'm Drew with Rock Squash Design. I'm Casey with US Action Track.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Misty from The Day We Make.
I'm here with Dustin Ogg from Oakley Overland.
I'm Jeremiah from Overland Pioneer.
Hi, we're Jessica and Jorge with Live with Wonder.
It's Chris from More Expo.
I'm Misty from Lady Overlander Radio.
And you're watching.
And you're watching.
And you're watching.
Are watching.
And you're watching.
And watching BROfessor and Friends.
BROfessor and Friends.
BROfessor and Friends.
Joey the BROfessor and Friends.
BROfessor and Friends.
BROfessor and Friends.
To the Professor and Friends.
BROfessor and Friends.
BROfessor and Friends.
Sponsored by More Expo, April 8th through the 10th, 2022. Linson Solar, U.S. Action Tracks, Big Iron Overland Rally, Artemis Overland Hardware in Springfield, Missouri, Blue Cell Coffee Roasters, and Long Creek Overland Apparel. Thank you for sponsoring our show. I had such a great time last week going around and videoing everybody for that and chopping it up and making them look like idiots. It was fun.
That's awesome.
That was awesome.
Greatest time doing that. Oh, look who's watching. Look who's watching.
Oh, I see Misty. Hi, Misty. We love you.
Shout out to The Day We Make. We got Arla Cress is on here from Bats Off Road. My beautiful wife is watching. Hello, everyone. And we're just excited that everybody's on here. Rick Elan, who just put on Natural State Overland, he said, I think Natural State Overland needs to step up. Hey, I had the camera out. A lot of people didn't want to get in front of it. So, hey, I'll only make you famous if you get in front of the camera. That's all I can say about that. But, hey, y'all are spending a month in this beautiful city, and this is your place where you're doing all your planning. So how does that take place? What is your agenda each day for getting that done?
Yeah, so we have been consumed by working on our builds, by wrapping up an entire life in the United States, and by all the logistics of living life abroad. And so that has consumed our 2021. So we have done zero route planning for this journey. And so we've developed this model where at the beginning of every continent, we're going to stay in the first country for up to 6 months to do the route planning for that continent.
Or whatever the visa length is.
And so what that looks like is we are taking out all the countries in Central and South America that we'd like to visit. And then we're identifying everything for that country from the visa requirements to the length of stay. And then we're getting local contacts, which is a really important piece, is that we want to know people on the ground in each country who can help us get to know the country, meet with us when we get there, and also be a safety net for us as well if anything were to come up with our vehicle or anything else.
That's cool. So how do you work in the normal everyday me, 9 to 5, go to work, come home, check the mail? People don't think about that. Where do you get your mail? Health insurance, how does that work? Just the normal things that take care, where you have to think about staying in tune with the world and taking care of your family. How do you plan for that?
So some of these we've come to learn because we've already been on the road for almost 8 years.
Right.
But
That's
the
why I
way that,
want you to teach the rest of us, because I know
yeah,
there's out there
yeah.
people out there that want to do the same thing.
So doing mail in the US is super easy. We had a mailbox with the UPS street address rather than a PO box.
Hmm.
And they could forward our mail to us wherever we were. They could tell us what we had before they sent it to us. And so that's what we had. And it worked really well when we had businesses in the United States as well. Now we're using my parents as our address, and that's just it to simplify logistics. Obviously, I trust my mom to open our mail.
Yeah.
So the little bit of mail that we get tends to be really important mail. And so that way,
And then obviously we go paperless with as
Right.
many things
Yeah.
as we can.
Right.
So
yeah, there are so few things that you have to get physical mail for.
Well,
these
how much
days.
easier is it now with the internet? How would that have worked before internet days, before cell phone days? The internet has made a lot of this so much easier on people like you.
It has, but then I think our lives have gotten a lot more complicated than they used to be as well. So it's kind of a balance.
Yeah. Well, being able to bank online, move money, do things like
Mhm.
that. I think, man, if you had to write checks for everything and people don't take checks anymore or something like that, that would be a nightmare. Carrying around
Mhm.
cash.
let me just say that there are 2 checkbooks with a bunch of blank checks that I've signed in a couple different safes in different parts of the country of the United States.
Yeah, that someone else can access if we actually need a check written.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
But again, that's
Awesome.
for US life. Like nobody uses checks,
Right.
Yeah.
So where we are, it's not
No, the
necessary.
bottom
But
line, Joey, is it's doable, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we could spend honestly the entire podcast talking about this, the logistics of how to do this. And by we, I mean Brittany has written a lot of articles about this on our website.
Awesome.
So if people are interested in that, or they can just ask us if he has an individual question that they want to ask about the logistics of this, they can hit us up on Instagram because Brittany responds to every single message. And if they hit us up on YouTube, I'll respond to them there. But the bottom line is we are a resource for the overlanding community. So if anybody has a question, we're here for you.
That's
yeah,
that's awesome. That's super, and that's one thing that anybody that's gotten into this lifestyle learns, that the people are so friendly. They want to help, and they're very encouraging. If you want to do this, hey, go do it. That's the mindset of the people, and we're here to help. And that's pretty much the way that everybody is, and that's why I love interviewing people such as yourself, sitting on a balcony in the middle of Mexico, wanting to come on here and tell people about what you're doing. Now,
yeah.
here lately, you have it hasn't been very long. You've completely changed your travel rig. So
Mhm.
tell us about what you've got and what you've done to prepare that thing to travel around the world.
Mhm.
Sure. So we started overlanding with what we had. And that's one of the things that we teach when we do speak publicly at different
Mm.
conferences is start with what you have. You only need to cover 5 things to go overlanding. It's water, food, shelter, warmth, or the ability to create warmth, and sleep. And if you can cover those 5 things, you can go anywhere in the world, right?
Hmm.
All the stuff is a really sad substitute for experience.
Yeah.
And so what we tell people is go out and figure out what type of overlanding you enjoy before you start spending thousands and thousands of dollars to upgrade your rig. So we started with what we had. We had a Jeep Wrangler. We outfitted it with a rooftop tent and a refrigerator, and we went straight into Mexico. We were using Tupperware containers to carry our stuff, and we were way overpacked. And we learned through experience and through trial and error what was going to work for our family.
Mhm.
And as a result, we spent 3 years discussing, planning our next build, having taken all of the experience that we learned over all of our full-time travel and all of our overlanding full-time travel that we had done throughout Mexico. And we came up with the Jeep Gladiator as our platform. And on top of that Jeep Gladiator, we put the Alucab Canopy Camper on the top, which allows us to sleep. Brittany and I sleep up in the rooftop tent. And then Goose Gear, we is completely outfitted with a Goose Gear deck plate system
Mm-hmm.
and sleep decks and the whole 9 yards. and that ends up making Caspian's bed in the back. So he actually sleeps on the lower floor. He's got his own bed, and then Brittany and I have our own bed. And in full transparency, Joey, we are sponsored by 27 different company sponsors, not monetary sponsors, but as gear sponsors. Goose Gear is one of them. So is Alucab for that matter. But all that to say that we decked out this Jeep Gladiator based on what we've learned. And again, I want to emphasize it's not about the stuff, because I think sometimes people will go and look at our Jeep or they'll look at our build. But you got to understand, I don't own another house. I don't own a couch. I don't own a television, a lawnmower. I don't, that's not part of our lifestyle.
No
so,
HOA fees.
No HOA fees. Our home probably costs less than most people's home around the United States.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a fancy vehicle and it's decked to the nines. Yes, it is. But it was built by experience, and it was done in such a way that we didn't have to carry debt around the world. And that was really important to us as well. In addition, the size of the vehicle was important because we needed to be able to fit it into a shipping container, and we wanted to drive down these colonial streets. If you watched our video from last week, you'll see why we don't have a box truck. And we looked at Unimogs and we looked at larger scale
and
vehicles.
Trailers as well.
Yeah.
Right. But again, because of our experience, and that's what it comes down to, because of our experience, we understood what we enjoyed, which might be different for somebody else. But for us, this was the type of vehicle that we wanted to build. And we have a full series on our YouTube of the build of that Gladiator.
And we have our complete build sheet on our blog too.
With everything that's on there.
And I'm assuming you can get to all of that from your website.
Yes. If you go to hourlesslife.com, you can get all of that information.
It's the place to be.
That's the hub. That's the hub. Where
hub.
Everything comes from. Everything good comes from. Rick has commented on here. This is a good question. Are any issues with standing out too much while in Mexico?
We were really worried about that. Coming in 2019, we had a Jeep Wrangler with a rooftop 10, and it had bright orange accents on it. And we just thought for sure that we would stand out everywhere. We thought every police officer that saw us was going to pull us over.
Yeah.
So our first day, I had like my manila folder with all of our documents just on my lap, like right there, because I was just so sure we were going to get pulled over 5 times a day. And then 2,000 miles and 2 months later, we were coming back to the border, having never been pulled over. And I told Eric, I don't even know where that folder is. so and all that to say, like, Mexicans can have some really nice vehicles. And so we went to dinner last night, and there was like this gorgeous Hummer, and there's Audis, and there's Mercedes. And so there's nice vehicles here too.
And still the overlanding vehicle does stand out, but the most that we get is we'll go to a border crossing and there'll be some guy there with a cigarette in his mouth and an ash hanging down, like this, and he'll be holding an automatic weapon. He'll come up and he'll look at it, he'll say, "Nice Jeep." And I'll say, "Thank you." And he'll say, "Donde vas?" Where are you going? And we'll say, "This city." And he'll say, "Where are you coming from?" We'll say, "This city." And he'll say, "Pásale," move along. And that's it. Like, we just move along.
Yeah. So you might think like we're going through a small town and every single person is looking at us, but they're not. Like, they're living their lives, and it just doesn't work that way.
And Rick, we do get looks. Okay. I mean, people still look at the vehicle, but I would tell you that people do that in the United States when we're driving around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. True. That happens everywhere. And you know what? My wife rides her own Harley, and it's decked out to the nines. It's purple and white. It's got ape hangers and fishtails, and I can't take her anywhere. I mean, when she stops, it's an hour of people coming over. Oh my gosh, look at that bike! Yeah. And now we have 2 FJ Cruisers, and every time we go out, it's constantly people wanting to look at them. And I can imagine being in another country where people really are not used to seeing that yet. It's becoming more common in the United States, but being in another country where it's not that common, people, even when we got home and everything was wet because it rained for 3.5 days, I popped the tent up in the driveway, and people are just driving by going, "What in the world is that thing?" So many people have no idea what it is, and they're curious and they want to know. They come up to you at a gas station. What is that on top of your roof?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
So everywhere you go.
It's just friendly curiosity.
Yeah, it's
and
curiosity.
We're happy to answer people's questions. Yeah. So
That's cool. So So we've talked about where you are, what you're doing. So tell us your plan. Where do you go from here? What are the countries in South America that you plan to go to?
So we have not planned out that far yet. I mean, we're going through South America. I can tell you that our goal is to get to Ushuaia, which is the southernmost point on the globe that you can actually drive to.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that is the goal. And then once we get to Ushuaia, we're actually going to come back up the continent of South America to go to Brazil. And the reason for that is that if you're driving the Pan American Highway, you don't actually go through Brazil. And in our opinion, no visit to South America is complete without actually visiting Brazil. So
I agree.
Yeah, the Bells, for example, just loved Brazil
Right.
so
Yeah.
much. So we're inspired by their experience
Right.
and what other people have told us.
So we plan to drive back up to Brazil, and then we'll ship the vehicle from Brazil to South Africa. And then, like Brittany said, we'll hub out of South Africa and plan the route up the African continent
Yeah.
from South Africa. But
Yeah.
I did want to say something right now. COVID is the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And the thing that's holding us back potentially, and this is just potentially, is the fact that ground borders in South America have not opened up yet. Like, you can fly into Ecuador today, but you can't drive into Ecuador today. And so there's a
Because
difference.
that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a difference between air borders and ground borders. And right now, the furthest south you could physically drive is Panama. And then
Right.
you could ship your vehicle to Colombia, but you can't drive out of Colombia into any country with the exception of Venezuela. And even the Venezuelans, friends of ours that are Venezuelan, are telling us, don't go to Venezuela. It's right now. It's not
unstable.
It's unstable.
It is unstable.
Yeah.
I've noticed that
Yeah.
with the
Right. So we're not going to Venezuela. At least that's not on the docket right now. And we do plan on going into Colombia and then heading south from there. But right now, as of today, we couldn't drive south of there. So we're going to start planning the route, but we're going to start with planning Central America. Keep in mind, we don't plan on being into South America probably until 2023. Because we're taking our time on this journey.
We're only going to do this once.
Yep.
So we're going to take our time.
And so we're hoping that by 2023, maybe the global, the global network would probably have a better idea of how to handle COVID by that time. So we'll see.
Maybe so. Maybe so. We're all hoping that, no matter where you live or where you're listening, I'm sure everybody wants to get back to normal if we can remember what normal was. But I love that you don't have a timetable. That's probably the biggest attractor to me, is not having a limit on, well, the only thing that limits you, I guess, is your visa time on where you can stay. But saying, well, if you want to go over here for a couple of days, we can do that. If you want to stay here for a week, we can do that. You don't actually have to have a schedule or have to be somewhere. That's the biggest attractor for me about what you're talking about, because you talked about how much you love that city and a place that you really hate to leave. And that's a big thing for me, is when you get to a place that you don't want to leave, but yet you still have happy feet and you have other places that you want to go. How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, let me back up. And you mentioned that the visa length is our limiting factor, and it is to a degree, in that, we get a 6-month visa in Mexico. We love Mexico. And then we get, I think it's 3 months in Belize. But let's say we go into Belize and we spend our 3 months there and we love it so much, we want to spend a 4th month in Belize. We can literally drive across the border back into Mexico and reset our visa for Belize. And then come back into Belize and start a new visa. And different countries have different time lengths that you have to be out of country before you can come back in and reset it.
Okay.
So it's totally doable. I just wanted to say that. As far as getting happy feet and just wanting to go, when we were in the United States, our typical length of stay was 1.2 days in any one location. So when I say we traveled full time, my 4-year-old son has already spent the night in all lower 48 of the United States. But so we moved around a lot. But here in Mexico, like I said, well, even on this global journey, we rebranded ourselves as Hourless Life. And that's actually very significant to us because, like you said, we have no time constraints whatsoever. We don't have an agenda. We don't have to be anywhere. We don't have any commitments to anyone that we don't make, right? So like we committed to you that we'd be on the show, we're here.
Yeah.
But as far as like, I don't have to be on a call with somebody if I don't want to. And we don't actually have to do any social media if we don't want to.
Right.
We do all of this by choice, and we have no time schedule.
Yeah,
So,
but having said that, it's taken us a decade to get to this point.
yeah, we have a video. I'm sorry, go ahead, babe.
Yeah, and we didn't wait to travel because we had all of those time constraints. Like we found a way to get on the road, and that way involved more than 40 hours of work every week and being self-employed and building 5 different businesses and feeling like we were working all the time. And then, you know, we slowly evolved to this point. And so I don't want to discourage anybody. I mean, there are people who take their 2 weeks of vacation and they fly to Patagonia and they overland Patagonia for 2 weeks and then fly back home. So there are ways to do it, even if you aren't hourless.
Right. Well, and like Brittany said, you know, it took us a long time to get here. It's not like we just woke up one day and made a decision to drive around the world. It was 10 years in the making. And we have a video on our YouTube channel called The Long Game. And if you want to see just what you're seeing right now, 2 talking heads talk to you for about 35 minutes about what it took us to get here to the point where we could be hourless. That video answers that question.
Yeah. Brandon said something. He said, do they speak Spanish? Yes, Eric does speak Spanish. He mentioned that earlier in the program. How are you going to handle the language barriers when you get to a place that Spanish or Portuguese, which is close, is not the native language? How will you handle that?
Want to talk about that?
People have been navigating speaking different languages since almost the beginning of time. So,
but and having said that, Brandon, there's this really cool thing called, and I'm not trying to be facetious here, Google Translate. Google Translate is your friend. We were actually just out to dinner the other night with a French couple, and they had 2 kids, and one of their kids was a daughter, and she was older. And I was asking her if she was having fun because she was playing with Caspian. She didn't understand what I was saying, and French I do not speak. So I went into Google Translate and I typed in, "Are you having fun?" And I didn't even have to say it. I could just hit the speaker button and it played it on my phone for her. And she looked at me with this huge smile and said, yes, you know. So Google Translate is your friend.
I've used that. I don't know how many times. It's wonderful, especially when you need to go to the bathroom. It works well. I have that pre-typed out.
Yeah, you can download language packs too, so that you don't even need an internet connectivity to use it.
And so we'll do that. If we're going into a specific country that has one predominant language, we'll download the language pack for that country before we go into it.
Oh, excellent. Rick wants to know, are you planning on retirement or are you living it now? I think you talked about that earlier.
Yeah, Eric served 20 years in the military, so he is retired.
Yeah, I mean, people ask that because he doesn't look over 30, and so it's
He's 51. Do I get to tell her age? Is that how this works?
I wouldn't. Y'all live in close quarters nowadays, so you gotta be nice.
Semper Paratus, Misty. I see you there.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm very envious of you. It's so beautiful down there where you are. My son is getting married to a Hispanic girl next year. We'll be traveling to Tabasco, Mexico.
Awesome!
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. To spend some time there. I've been to Brazil twice, and it is unbelievable. The food, the beaches, Copacabana Beach. The big Jesus up on the hill. I didn't know until the last time I went there, but Rio de Janeiro is built inside of a national forest, and I didn't know that. If you go up to the big Jesus, all you can see when you look down on the city is trees. It is an amazing, amazing place. Y'all will definitely love it there. It is so nice.
Hey, Joey, let me do this. Since we're on video, I'm just going to show the people who are watching our view,
sure.
If that's cool, and then I'll bring it right back. All right, so we are on a terrace right now. This is our little Airbnb terrace, but down this way, 2 blocks that way is the main plaza where the big cathedral is. And if you watch our video that just went live today, you'll get to see that plaza. It's called the Plaza de Armas, and it is mind-blowingly beautiful. The buildings there are incredible. And then on this side here, again, this is all in the center of the historic district. Just around this corner is a church called the Templo de San Francisco de Asís and a Jardín de San Francisco. And again, that's also in the video that we just published today. But you guys got to see this. I mean, this city, when I tell you that I can live in a city, that's saying a lot, because I love to travel, and this city has just captured my heart and our attention.
And today was it today that your attention was captured by the president of the city?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So what happened was, okay, I'm gonna tell the story, and I'll try and tell it brief. On Monday of this week, I was filming this video that I've been talking to you guys about, and I was filming the municipal palace from the outside. That's the equivalent of City Hall in the United States. It's where the mayor and his staff are. And here the mayor is called the president of the city. So there's the president of San Luis Potosi. And I went up to the security guard, the police officer at the front, and I asked if we could go in and film. And he said, no, not unless you're with an official. And I said, okay, not a big deal. And so I left and filmed the rest of the video. Well, the next day on Tuesday, Brittany and I were having breakfast. And after breakfast, we split up. Brittany and Caspian went back to the Airbnb. And I went to go get some bakery, some pan from a panaderia, a bakery here in Mexico, for the afternoon. And I came out of the panaderia, and this guy bumps into me. He like literally body checked me. And we just kind of looked at each other for a moment. He said, excuse me. I said, not a problem, but I said it in English. He said, where are you from? I told him I'm from the United States. We're driving around the world. And there was this really important looking dude that was walking by with a bunch of people taking pictures of him. And he said, you're driving around the world? I said, yes. He goes, and you're here in San Luis? And I said, yes. And he said, I want to introduce you to the president. Now, keep in mind, that's the equivalent of I want to introduce you municipal. So it's the equivalent of I want to introduce you to the mayor.
Right.
And so he brings me over to the mayor and introduces me. Next thing you know, I'm walking into the municipal palace to the mayor's office, the president's office. And I'm taking photos with him like, hey, like this. And it was crazy. And then so he introduces me to his director of tourism, who then sends me to this agency, who then takes us to this national park today, here about 45 minutes out of San Luis Potosi. And Brittany was rappelling today. Caspian and I went ziplining today. We walked through this national forest that is just unbelievable. And then we came back here and we had Domino's Pizza. Don't judge us. We were in a hurry. And it was so good. And then after that, we prepared for this time with you. So it's been nonstop. But yeah, it was a crazy time meeting the president.
That's incredible, and all because you were just trying to get bread.
I was just trying to get bread,
and that's it.
Run-in led to this whole series of events.
And the funniest part of the story, I got to tell this. I'm probably going to get in trouble for sharing this. So the first day when I went to go and ask if I could go into the municipal palace, there was a police officer standing at the front of the guard shack area. And I asked him if I could go in and tape, and he said, no. And he was a jerk about it, to be honest with you. He was kind of rude. He's like, no, unless you're with an official, you cannot come in. And I was like, okay, dude, chill out. No problem. So I left. The second day when I walked in with the president, and it was the same police officer that was at the front door.
I love it.
And I said to the police officer, because I speak fluent Spanish, I said, is this guy good enough, or do I need to find somebody else? And he and he just looked at me. He goes, I'm so sorry. Please come in. Funniest thing ever.
Oh, that is true, and the best kind of vindication. It is. It just makes your heart sing when you're like, man, I hope that guy's back out there again. That's awesome. That's incredible. Tell me, and I'm curious because of all the places that you've been. One of the things that we like to talk about on the show, because people are curious about what are some of the best, most memorable places that you've been that stick out in your head. Give me 2 or 3 of them that really stick out.
So hard.
That's really.
I know it is. That's a hard question when you've been to so many places.
We've been a lot of places.
Yeah.
Do you want us to talk about the United States? So
it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I've been all over the world too. So I would say, my favorite place is Sicily because it's so many reasons. So everybody's got their places that stand out.
Okay.
My favorite city in the U.S. is Savannah, Georgia, and I just love all the history and the Spanish moss and the architecture. I think it's gorgeous. And I know it's kind of cliche, but Yellowstone is totally my favorite national park and definitely
awesome.
one of my happy places.
Mm.
Until you've been there, you don't understand how many national parks can fit into this national park.
Yeah.
And so there's so many ecosystems and the animals. It's just mind blowing. Like you never see that many animals. One day we counted. We went to the east side of the park and counted bison, and I think we counted 1,600 bison that we saw that day. I'm not even kidding. I mean, we were like looking out in the field and counting them, but 1,600. And bison are my favorite animal, so that's probably a reason.
Really?
I
wouldn't have never thought that.
Yeah, it was part of our logo for our original blog, which was called RV Wanderlust. We had a bison on the logo.
Okay, excellent. Well, I can't argue.
You want me
with...
to share? Or
yes,
is that good? Or
please,
so,
come on.
Well, the most beautiful place I've ever been to is Antarctica, and I've been there twice. And again, it's simply because there's nothing on Earth to compare it to. It is mind-blowingly gorgeous, all white, just the reflection of the sun on the ice and just what you get to see down there. It's just it's an experience of a lifetime. It's an experience worth doing if you ever get a chance to go down there. As far as my favorite cities around the world, I love Salzburg, Austria. I've been wanting to take Brittany there for a long time, and so I hope that on this global journey we're able to spend some time in Salzburg. As far as cities in the United States, that is a tough one. I love New York City. I really love New York City, and I know that might come way off the wall.
Of cities.
Wow,
yeah, but
that blew me away right there.
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't know that, but I love the energy of the city. I love the New York Yankees. I love all of that whole vibe of New York City. But
very busy.
As far as if there was any, and this is one of the questions we get asked the most when we're doing public speaking in the States is, if you were going to settle down anywhere in the United States and you had to make a decision today, this is where I'm going to settle down, where would it be? And my answer is definitely the state of Arizona, most likely in the Prescott area. So
beautiful.
Hope that's helpful.
Beautiful areas. So we had a question. They wanted you to narrow it down. Are you beach people or mountains people? Mountains.
Yeah, more
or
mountains
lake.
people, but lake. But we love some beaches too. Yeah.
Have you camped on the beach before? Is beach camping one of your things?
Yeah, we've camped on the Great Lakes too. We
did
a
love
Badge
it
of
up there.
Honor trail. On
Drummond Island
on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and literally during the Badge of Honor trail, there's this little beach cutoff where you can literally park on the sand and pop your tent.
Yeah,
and that was amazing.
That's
beautiful.
beautiful.
And Isla Mujeres, which is just off of Cancun, it's an island just off of Cancun, has some beautiful beaches where you can get like $20 massages. I mean, and little tiki bars, really nice there. Best mountains have to be the Sierra Gorda Mountains in the interior of Mexico, in the state of Querétaro.
Yeah, not too far from where we are.
Not too far from where we are right now. It's basically Black Bear Pass, but in Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, super cool. You can look out your window. The last time we did it, I looked out my window and you're looking 2,000 feet straight down. You've got inches on either side, and you go down 8,000 feet into this canyon. You do 50 river crossings, and you camp down there in the middle of this huge canyon. Absolutely phenomenal. And favorite road. What is our favorite road, babe?
That one, was it in Utah? It was like Highway 12.
Oh, yeah.
Through Grand Staircase Escalante.
Oh,
that was pretty cool.
We just did
Grand
that
Staircase Escalante. Yes.
Oh my gosh, it was incredible.
Yeah, and Highway 395 is really
in
cool
California.
too. Really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a good one.
Incredible. Well, we've got some listeners from down in Mexico that's listening to us. Wanting to know how San Luis Potosi is treating you. You've talked about that a couple times, how much you love it.
Nación Jeep. Hola Nación Jeep. Estamos bien. San Luis Potosí es increíble. Me encanta la ciudad que está aquí, y anteayer conocí al presidente de San Luis Potosí. Así es.
Yeah, he said they said that
Proud of
they were
that.
in near Tijuana, so y'all probably aren't close to each other, but I'm sure he understood what you said. Uh, amazing, amazing. One of the questions that we always get with families that come on here is, how does how does having a small child affect your decisions and pretty much everything that you do? Do you plan things? Do you plan to go to places to specifically for him, educating and different things like that? So how does how does your son affect your decisions that you're making?
So when we decided to have a child, we had already been traveling full time for a couple of years. And when people found out that we were pregnant, they automatically assumed that we were not going to travel full time anymore,
Hmm.
especially then. I mean, it's 2016, so full time families weren't as common then as they are now. And that thought had never crossed our mind. We
Yeah.
did not plan to get off the road, and we didn't. And we didn't have as great of a nightlife. Well, we still don't.
Right.
But other than that,
This is
I
our
mean,
Yeah, you're sitting here with me, of course.
No, but really, we don't see that our life has to change that much. Having
Yeah.
Caspian with us, he just syncs up with what we're doing as a family. And he learned that we're a family that hikes, we're a family that travels,
Yeah.
and that involves a lot of time in the car. We're a family that meets new people all the time. And those
Yeah.
are norms for all three of us.
Yeah.
And so it's one of my passions to empower other parents to travel with their children and not use kids as an excuse not to
Yeah.
travel, because they really don't have to be.
It's
Education is-
incredible. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
incredible
And
that's all he's ever known. And
yeah,
the education that he is receiving through life experience is more than any child could receive sitting in a classroom all day. It's incredible for me to even think about everything that he's learning through all of your experiences
yesterday
each day.
we were at a restaurant, and without prompting, without us saying anything at all to him, he turned and looked at us and he said, "El agua, por favor." And he was trying to figure out, is that how I ask for water?
Yeah.
And
He's just
completely
learning.
unprompted. Like, he just looked at us and said, "El agua, por favor." And I'm like, "That's right, son. That's right. That's how you ask for water."
But I
Wow.
mean, I think we would all agree as adults that the things that fulfill us and help us to be successful, by what that truly means to us, are not things that we learned from a book or could learn from a book. They're things that we learn through experience and from the people that we trust and love.
Yeah.
And so as we go throughout the world, every single person we meet has something to teach him from their own life experience. And he's going to take that with him and apply it to the rest of his life.
That's incredible. It's I learned so much from sitting on the lap of my dad or sitting on the lap of my papa and having them tell me stories about the things that they went through. And I can't imagine all the laps that he's going to sit on in the next few years and learn from people that he's not related to, but yet have so much good information to pass on to him for knowledge and wisdom for his future. You're going to do this for, you said 15 years. So by the time you get done, he's going to be a young man. It should be an incredible growing up time for him. How do you see him at the end?
Well,
Where do you see him at the end of this?
yeah, let me say a few things on this. When we say 10 to 15 years, it's just a guess, Joey. And
Yeah,
we,
sure.
we throw that out there because, first of all, we're hourless. We don't have a schedule. But second of all, we figured we've traveled around full time in the United States for 7.5 years. If we only did 2 years per continent for the last 5 continents, that's 10 years by itself. So that's kind of what we based it on.
Sure.
As far as the impact on Caspian, one of the big reasons we've decided to do this is because of him. And it would bless my heart to have a son who could never be told by anyone what he should think of the world. we have the media that's constantly pounding our brain with what we should think of Mexico, or what we should think of Syria, or what we should think of Palestine, or what we, et cetera. You fill in the blank. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's going to be able to say, you know what? I've been there.
Yeah.
I have friends there. Have you been there?
Yeah.
And he's going to be able to say that at like 14 years old. He's going to be able to say, I've been around the world. I have friends there. Let me tell you about the people of this place that you're talking about, as he continues to mature and get older. Also, he's going to have a global cultural upbringing. So he's not raised on a culture of the United States where, and I'm a proud American. I don't want to offend anybody. I love the United States. I served my country for 20 years. But, we have this almost like keeping up with the Joneses mentality, where you're supposed to have the dog, the 2-car garage, the golden retriever, and the white picket fence, and if that's what you have, hey, and that's what you want, more power to you. But that's not how the world lives. And so I would love for my son to have this understanding that different cultures have a different understanding of what's important or what value is placed in, so that when he returns, he doesn't see something as a need to have, but more of a, is this something that I really want as part of my life?
Yeah. That blows my mind. When I was growing up as a small kid in the 70s, people that were nomads were thought of as weird or odd. They were thought of as, an old druggie that lives in a van down by the river, smoking weed the whole time. And now now the whole mindset has changed. Yeah, there still is the van life out there, but people that live in their cars are not really homeless anymore, but that is their home. It's a total different mindset. It's a total different way to think about it. And, if somebody back when I was a kid, I'm 50 years old, so we're about the same year. We're about the same age. It's totally different now than what it was back then. It's a whole different lifestyle that's looked at a little bit different than it was 30, 40 years ago. And now it's accepted. You have so many options about how you can educate your child, about how you can live a life. I didn't even think that was an option back when I was a teenager. I thought that everybody was supposed to have, a house on the corner with a white picket fence, a dog, and 2 kids. I mean, I thought that was the way everybody was supposed to live. And now everybody's thinking is just completely different. I have options. I can travel and work, or I can work and retire and travel. There's so many different options out there. And for you to be taking advantage of this the way that you are, you are living the best life possible. And I totally admire that. We've had so many comments. I can't keep up. I want to know, there's, Rick says I'm up for adoption. Take me with you. And then Brandon.
Yeah, do you babysit, right? Hey,
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Stop talking, Joey.
Rick's a great babysitter. Yeah, he's a great babysitter.
If you babysit and you're up, to come out and hang out for a while, just let me know, okay? Because I've got an Airbnb in Guanajuato that has 4 bedrooms, and I'm only using 2 of them. So you come down to Guanajuato, and then Brittany and I go out and have a nightlife.
They need a nanny, Rick. They need a nanny. He's up for it.
Can I throw out a plug for our Patreon? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Can I do that,
please?
Listen,
yes,
we just launched it, and we're not doing this to become wealthy or anything, but what we found is that a lot of people really want access to what our thoughts are, like what we're doing right now, but they want it on a regular basis. And we have a bunch of different tiers over there. We haven't really heavily promoted it or anything, but if you're on our Patreon almost daily, we talk with our Patreons daily. And so it's just a great way to get involved, and we have some different tiers, so check it out.
Yes, please. I hope everybody, and I think I probably have that right. I'm gonna try to put a banner up there so everybody will know what that is. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. Very welcome. Tell me about what is your in all the things that you do, in all your travel and dealing with having a small child, what is your biggest challenge that you seem to face on a daily basis in traveling like you do?
I don't think this is too profound for anybody, but for me, it's balance.
Okay.
I mean, we all struggle with balance. We're balancing work and our spouse and our children and our personal passions. And for us, we have an added one, which is travel and all the logistics surrounding it. And so it can just be kind of hard to stay grounded sometimes on what's important, which for us is our faith and our family. And it's really easy to get caught up in all the daily tasks. So honestly, it's no different from really anybody else. I mean, it's the same.
Yeah.
Well, and you, I'm sure you have some added challenges. Living in you're living in a foreign country where you're not from, and you're having to communicate and different things like that. But that's just one of the things that I wonder about. If I go, and that was one of the things when I went to Brazil the last time. It was the year before last. My wife did not want to go because she was so afraid there won't be anything that I can eat, or there's a lot of criminal activity there, and just one thing after another. And I was like, fine, stay home, I'm going. But do you worry about that from place to place that you go? Is that a factor?
And you'll appreciate this, Joey. As a law enforcement officer, I don't really have that typical fear that most people do. I'm used to going into situations. So from a fear standpoint, that doesn't really apply to me that way. Having said that, what I will say is that the big challenge with this is that if Brittany and I do this entire trip, let's put this out there. Let's say that 10 to 15 years from now, you and I are on this podcast again, right? And we've completed the global journey. Okay. We've literally driven around the world. Our son went from 4 years old to 14 or 17 years old. And now he's on the podcast with us. Okay.
Yeah.
The only people who are going to hear this story are the people who are listening to your podcast, or the people who are on our YouTube channel, or that follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Okay. Because the news media will never carry that story unless we get an agent and try and purposefully, get it out there in the mainstream, which that's not who we are. So we're not trying to do that. Having said that, if something horrendous were to happen to us, okay, we die in a fiery car crash, or, somebody kidnaps one of us, or we get carjacked. Okay. That's going to be on every major news outlet in the United States. And it's going to be blasted, and we're going to get our 15 minutes of fame.
Right.
And everybody's going to be saying, how stupid were those people, those poor suckers. Nobody knows who Graham Bell is. I love Graham. Okay.
Yeah.
And this community knows who Graham is.
Right.
But walk down the street and poll 100 people. I challenge you. Just 100 random people, and ask them if they've ever heard of Graham and Louisa Bell. Dan Greck, Scott Brady.
I mean, there are people driving around the world, and nobody's talking about it.
Right. But if and this is
why are we talking about Hollywood?
Right. but this is horrendous. But if I were to say, do you know who Brian Laundrie is? Or do you know who Gabby Petito is?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody knows who they are right now because they are in the news media because of some sensational, horrific thing that happened. And so here you could accomplish something that literally takes over a decade and is one of the most difficult things to do, and nobody's ever going to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
You're right, because that's what the normal person wants to watch, wants to hear. They want to take in all that negativity. They don't want to hear about the success of people.
Right.
That they want to hear, murder and mystery.
That goes back to what you were asking. So people say, should I be afraid of these countries? Well, the reason they're afraid of these countries is because that's what they hear on the media.
That's exactly.
But what they don't hear is our story. So I hope I hope everybody hears this podcast and they get to minute, the hour minute or minute, whatever, hour and 1 minute when we started talking about this, because people need to hear this, that what you're hearing is not necessarily how it actually is. And if you want to know what it's like to overland internationally, overland globally, don't go looking for the news, or don't go looking for, what people think of these places. Go to people who have been there and ask them.
And only
Yeah.
And only them.
Yeah.
That's what we had to decide to do when we were going to interior Mexico for the first time, because we were getting so much blowback about crossing the border and how dangerous it was going to be. And finally, we realized, why are we listening to these people and letting them get to us? We should only be listening to people who have driven in Mexico. And so that started to become our standard response when we got a negative comment was, how much time have you spent in Mexico?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like 99% of the time, we would never, ever hear back from them.
Yeah.
So.
Or they would respond and say, well, I haven't been there, but I have a friend who just told me that this happened.
Or I heard on the news.
Yeah, or I heard on the news that this happened.
Yeah, exactly. And we all know that we can believe everything that's on the news. Brandon asked a couple times. He was a Marine stationed in the Middle East. You talked about traveling through. My son's a Marine too. So, are you planning on traveling through the Middle East? Is that on your plans?
So the answer is, we are planning on traveling on all 6 habitable continents. We are only planning each continent one at a time. And the reason for that is that the political climate changes so rapidly in many of these countries that there's no point in even planning. A perfect example of this is that Ethiopia currently is going through a civil war, and it's really horrendous over there and whatnot. We're not going to be in Africa for like 6 or 7 years. So there's no point in planning like that route through Africa right now, or even thinking about that part of the world.
And the Middle East is even farther away.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're avoiding the question. The answer to your question is that we plan our route based on where we're going next. And even though we're traveling the globe, we don't see it as we're traveling around the world. We see it as we're traveling into Mexico. Okay, now we're traveling into Belize. Now we're traveling into Guatemala. We take it a step at a time.
I understand. And I think of it as, and you've really opened my eyes to thinking about this, because, I never would have guessed that. I figured you had, things planned out well in advance. But, if you talk to a football team about their game on Saturday, they're not worried about the team they play in 2 weeks. They're worried about the team that they play Saturday. And for me, that makes sense to me, because that's in terms that I can understand. You worry about where you're at now, and then plan the next one, and then plan the next one, then plan the next one. I get that. I totally get that. That makes sense to me. And so, if it does happen and you're gone for 10, 12, 15 years, some countries will have gone through 3, 4, maybe 5 elections. You never know. You never know what it might be. And every election holds something different in every country. All about tourism and prices and borders. All that is affected.
Well, Joey, and our whole world can change in an instant. Look, in February of 2020, Brittany and I decided to go into Baja California and do the entire peninsula of Baja. We overlanded the whole peninsula all the way down to Cabo. We were in Santa Rosalia, Mexico, Baja California, Mexico. And that's when we first heard the news about COVID. Okay. And when we crossed the border into Baja, there was no such thing as COVID. Like that.
As far as we were.
Right. Like we didn't even know the word existed. Right. And so in an instant, not only did Baja change, the world changed overnight. And it progressively started getting worse. And at that moment, if you guys remember back to March of that year, nobody really knew what was going on. It was kind of like this whole, oh crap moment. Like what's going to happen now? That could happen again 5 years from now, and the whole world could change again. So we don't know. We don't have all the answers. What we do know is that barring something catastrophic, we plan on driving around the world. And that's what we know.
And we are driving around
the world.
world.
We're doing it right now. We're doing it. We're not talking about it. We're doing it.
Yeah, that's the cool part to me. I mean, even though you're at the beginning, I'm glad I got to catch you at the beginning, because planning and the excitement of it is still there. You're not 2 years down the road thinking, oh my gosh, what in the world have we done? we're halfway around the world and we're ready to get home.
Yeah, this
So,
is our first interview since we started our trip and crossed the border.
Yeah.
So it is really awesome, Joey. It's a
yeah,
special
and
thing.
and like I said before we went on the air, just your post today, it seems like every new day that comes is your favorite day that you've had so far. I mean, that's the way it's
Now that
coming
you mention
across.
it.
So guilty.
Yeah, and that's awesome to me. That's awesome to me when you wake up and think, what is going to happen today? I mean, you didn't wake up yesterday and think I'm going to go hang out with the president today. I mean,
No,
you just
no.
never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the things that you experience and you picking out your city and you picking out your city and going there because of the things that it offers and experiencing that, knocking things off your bucket list. I can't imagine how humongous your bucket list is of all the places that you're going, because it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. When you research a place and see all that it has to offer, it just excites you that much more. I cannot wait to do this. I can't wait to do this. So is that how you're going to plan this trip? Are you going to look at different places the way that it could benefit your family, or things that you want to see, the things that you want to experience, make a list of things in that area? Is that kind of your process of how you're planning this?
I think it's a similar process to what we did in the United States, which was we would look at the region that we were going into and kind of some highlights that we were interested in. We might pin them on a map, and then we would, the night before, we would say, where are we going tomorrow? Or
Yeah.
sometimes that morning, we would say, where
Yeah.
are we going today? And I would say like 8 times out of 10, we say, I think we're too tired to do that. Let's just go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Or let's just watch Netflix. I mean, you can't play tourist all the time. It's exhausting.
You're right.
And
You're right.
so, like, that's something that's been challenging about San Luis Potosí, is that everyone here is so welcoming and they want to share the area with us, and everybody has something they want to show us.
Yeah.
And it's just too tiring. Like,
Yeah.
we can't
Yeah.
go out every day and do
Oh, I
something.
I remember when I was a kid, when I was Caspian's age, we would come back from vacations and I was like, man, I'm just worn out. I don't understand this whole vacation thing, because
Yeah.
my dad would wake us up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We gotta go see this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, I thought a vacation was you go and you hang out and you don't do nothing, you just eat and lay around. No, not with him, and vacationing could be tired and
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you consider your life a full-time vacation?
No. I didn't even
Yeah,
hesitate on
it's
that
not.
answer. Absolutely no.
This
No.
is
No.
normal life for us. Like,
Yeah.
normal life isn't a vacation for anybody. I mean, we all still have our family matters that
Yeah.
we deal with. I mean, Eric's mom turns 90 and she's up in
Oh, wow.
Seattle, and we manage all of her affairs as we
Yeah.
drive around the world. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just one example of how normal life continues.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
get to escape normal life because you decide to drive around the world. That's a misnomer. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's true.
The other thing I will say,
That's the point I wanted to make too when I said
yeah.
that.
Yeah. The other thing I will say to your question though is about how we plan our route as far as activities and stuff. I like a lot of individual contacts, and Brittany mentioned that. So on the sheet for each country that we're going into, we want to have at least 3 other either overlanders, outdoor lifestyle adventurists, hikers, 4x4 folks, or whatever, from each locals in each of those countries. And then I want to connect with them and maybe have a phone call, a FaceTime call, or email chat with them and get to know them a little bit. And then if possible, I'd like to connect with them when we get into their country, because here's the deal. Where are you at, Joey? Where's your home?
I'm in Arkansas.
Okay. So if I were to go to your place in Arkansas, yeah, I can open up a Frommer's and I can see where all the places to eat are or whatever. Or I could ask Joey and be like, hey, Joey, I'm coming into your town. Where are we going to go eat? Right.
The
And you're going to be
locals
like, yeah, the locals know. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing around the world. And so when we run into locals, they take us to places that aren't on the tourist guides. They take us to that waterfall that doesn't exist in your list, or that doesn't show up.
Internet,
right?
Anywhere.
Yeah.
And they know these spots and they're comfortable with these spots. So it enriches our time, because not only are we getting to see these areas that most people don't get to see, but we're getting to meet people who then we get to learn from them about their culture, become friends with, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Locals have the keys to the gate. You know,
Amen.
that private place that nobody else gets to go.
Yep.
The place that nobody else knows about. They have the keys to the gate. It's that is um, that is oh, I love it. I love it. You're getting me excited for you, and I'm not even there.
Come on
I
down.
love it.
Come on down, Joey. What you waiting on?
I love it. Well, I'm waiting 5 years. 5 years I can
All right.
be where you're at, and I can retire, and I can be traversing the world as well. Man, this is just incredible. I have looked forward to this day visiting with you, and there's so much I want to discuss, but I know that y'all have other things you need to do. Like you said, the work doesn't stop. Your regular life, you still are posting every day. You're still taking care of family. You're still doing your YouTube channel and posting videos, and that's work. It's not like you're retired and sitting around smoking a cigar and having a glass of wine all day. I mean, you're working. You're out there working, and I understand.
And Joey, we could be. So that's what I want to make very clear to your audience. We could be. We don't have to do this anymore. Like if you watch our video, The Long Game, you'll understand we don't have to do social media. We don't have to work anymore. We're not independently wealthy, but from my pension and from the sale of our businesses, we've just scaled down. We've scaled down so much. We have enough to keep fuel in the tank and food on the table, and for repairs and insurance. Okay. Yeah. Which, like I said, I don't want people to get the impression that, oh, they must be really rich. We're not. We are not wealthy. Financially wealthy. Our budget is $93 a day. That's our budget. Okay. Now, having said that, we choose to do this. The sharing. We choose to do the YouTube. We choose to do the social media, and we do it because part of me wishes that there was somebody like us 10 years ago that I knew that I could reach out to and ask questions to, and be like, hey, this is a dream of mine. This is what I want to do. Would you invest your time in me? So my answer and Brittany's answer to your audience and to the audience at large is ask us questions. We are a resource for you because we choose to be a resource for you. Yeah. If I wanted to be smoking a cigar and Brittany drinking wine and us doing nothing else, we could do that right now. We choose not to do that.
Right. That's great. And I love that you're documenting your life. And, I tell my kids, we don't sit around and have coffee tables with picture books on them anymore. That's a thing of the past. And I remember as a kid, we would go to my granny's house and we would bring out the picture books and look at them as children and bring out the old black and whites. And that's not really the thing anymore. The thing is now you're documenting your life on social media. You're putting pictures on Instagram. They'll be there forever. For our kids, our grandchildren, and everybody after them to go and look at and to say, hey, that was my dad, or that's somebody that I can learn from because I want to do what he did. And I love it. I think it's an incredible thing for us an incredible resource for us to have. And I would encourage everybody to go to your website, to go to your YouTube and check it out, support you on Patreon, because I think it's worth it. You are entertainment to us. Your life is entertainment to us. You have given us a camera inside your life. And, I think it's worth supporting. So I want to encourage everybody to do that. Any last words for anybody watching out there? We've about reached the end of our time, and I just want to give you the floor. Anything you want to say to anybody out there watching?
Yeah, we appreciate everybody's time, and we are Hourless Life everywhere. So we have our blog. It has hundreds of articles on it about our travels for the past 8 years. And we have all of our social media and our YouTube, and we try and post every Thursday. So we just had a video that came out today.
And I would add one last thing, and this is just my philosophy, and that is that life is not about money. Life is not about stuff. Life is about the memories that you make along the way and the legacy that you leave behind. And that's it. We got a really cool truck. We don't get to take it with us. right? So it's all about the memories that you make along the way and the legacy that you leave behind. And the most important asset that each and every one of us have is time. And once you spend that asset, you can never regain it. You can never make more of it, and you don't know how much of it you have. So my encouragement to you is to follow your dream, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to look like ours. You don't have to drive around the world, but whatever your dream is, pursue that with everything that you are, relentlessly, and pursue that dream, because you get one shot around. So take it.
Amen. I cannot follow that up with any other thing. The philosopher has spoken. I tell that to everybody almost at the end of every show. One thing that we are never guaranteed is time. Live the best life you possibly can. Use your time wisely, and get out there and live the best life that you could possibly dream of. Thank y'all so much for joining me on this. It has been a true honor and a treat for all of us to visit with you. Everybody out there, thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week. Hope you have a wonderful week. See you next week.
Thank you.
Dance, baby, dance, baby.
Thank you for watching.
BROfessor.
BROfessor
and Friends.
Sponsored by U.S. Action Tracks, Winston Solar, More Expo, Big Iron Overland Rally, Blue Cell Coffee Roasters, Long Creek Overland Apparel, and our good friends at Artemis Overland Hardware. Thank you for watching